Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Ochs. I'm honored to have you here today listening to the smartsocial.com podcast, where we teach every student not only how to be safe and then mentally well with mental health and a vocabulary to protect themselves, but also to build a private portfolio so they learn the activities that they're good at. 90% of it's up here. These are the things I shine online with so they can someday turn it into a high school resume and get that dream career, dream college, and everything else. It's our 4-step plan. Today, I have a really awesome guest. His name is Blain Watson, soon to be a doctor because as a USC Trojan, he's in a doctoral program. He is the principal at Dominguez High School in the Compton Unified School District here in Southern California. Blain, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm honored to be here, and I want to say for all of my Trojans out there, fight on.
Fight on, baby. I love it. I'm a Trojan as well for everybody listening. Now, I love UCLA. It's great. But when you get part of that Trojan family, no matter what school your kids go to, it is really cool to just have that connection. It's really neat. Okay, now, Principal Watson, we've got a lot to talk about. I want to keep this tactical and practical because that's what I'm all about, sharing with parents and educators how they can raise their children in middle school and high school around this social media world that we live in. They call them digital natives, but I think it's so much more. You've done some incredible things. I'm going to brag about you just for 1 second. You have been principal of this school for 2 years. You have taken the absentee rate from 27% when you arrived down to 9.9%. That's the first stat and the only stat I'm going to share with everybody here. This is an impressive human being. I'm not saying that because he's a USC Trojan. I'm saying that because he works hard and he's going to have a ton of tips. If you enjoy this, please rate, subscribe, and review to the podcast and share it with another administrator or another parent. If you are a PTA parent or PTSA, please consider sharing this with some other people, because what Principal Watson is going to share with us here today is somebody in the trenches who for 2 years has put his whole life into this and has made a positive, meaningful change in this district. Okay, Principal Watson, talk to us about your mission statement and give us a little bit of your background in the last 2 years.
Great. So we're at Dominguez High School, Compton Unified. We're the Dominguez High School Dons. So Don is our namesake, and we're named after Don Manuel Dominguez, who was actually a famous one of the first legislators in the state of California in the 1800s, Mexican-American gentleman. So the whole area in East Compton is actually called East Rancho Dominguez. So if you notice, if you drive in the area, there are a lot of streets that are named Dominguez. Dominguez Hills University, Cal State University Dominguez Hills is also located on the border of Compton and Carson. Dominguez is a very famous name in Southern California. The mission statement of Dominguez High School, which we developed after me taking the helm in July 2017, I worked with our instructional leadership team and parent leaders and student leaders to develop the following statement: that Dominguez High School will create an emotionally, intellectually, and physically safe learning environment for all, where we equip all of our students for post-secondary success in a 21st century global society through cultural relevance, quality instruction, supportive relationships, and lastly, exposure to opportunities. So you'll hear in the first, and I think the rest, the second part of the mission statement, you hear in many other mission statements, right? Focused on 21st century learning, focused on, culturally relevant teaching, high quality instruction. And obviously we want to expose our youth to as many opportunities as possible. But what I'm specifically proud of is the first line, that we're focused on safety emotionally, safety intellectually, and physically for all of our students and our staff.
Yeah, talk to us about safety. It kind of goes into, well, let's dive into your biggest tip. Your biggest tip, we'll come back to some safety if you don't mind, or we can talk about that now. Actually, let's dive into, you talk a little bit about making kids happy at school, which I think is a little bit part of that, if you don't mind me diving into that. I love this. Talk to us about what makes a child happy at school in your definition?
I believe that a student is happy at school when he or she feels a sense of belonging. A lot of research talks about, especially with the population we serve, students need to build agency. And when we build student agency, it's about knowing that they have a purpose and knowing that they belong in the spaces on campus. So not just in the classroom, but in the cafeteria, in the library, the main office, in the gym, wherever kids would walk on campus, they feel that they belong there. In changing our approach, our attendance approaches, and reducing the chronic absentee rate, um, it really was about connecting with kids and really making sure that they feel that they are loved on campus. I'll talk a little bit about our 4 L's in a little bit. I'll start with the first one. All Don's love, right, is a pillar in terms of it's a really important, I want to say, it's our belief system, core value. We want all students to love each other. We want them to love themselves, to love their community. But what I know our students don't hear enough of is that people love them. And I'm not afraid as a leader of our school to tell students individually, collectively, when we have pep rallies and large group meetings, that I love them. They need to hear that as much as possible, because sadly, a lot of our students don't hear enough at home. So they need to know that when they spend the 8 to 9 to 10 hours with us during the day, and they spend many more hours during the day with us than they do with their own families, that the home they come to Dominguez High School is a place of love and a place of acceptance.
That's bold, by the way, to say that, because some principals are afraid, but you're taking that bold approach because that's what the students need in your school. Am I right?
I think every student needs love, not just in my school. I think the reality is, and if we look at adolescent development and, like I said, sense of belonging, and their development process is in a place of discovery and identity. It's important for them to have a grounded sense of love from adults that they look to.
Okay, so you have 4 pillars, 4 things that you teach. The first one is love.
Yes.
The second one is?
All Dons learn.
Okay, so, talk to us about learning.
Actually, let's. I was going to reverse order. So the cadence is all Dons love, listen, lead, and learn.
Okay. All right. So, and I had that written down. Listen, I was like, whoa, we got a new one. We got a new L in there, everybody. All right. So love and listen. Talk to us, please, about how you've instructed your staff to listen to students.
It's important. So it all comes back to the idea of the Don way. So the Don way is really a slogan that we developed when I first came on board after, again, many meetings. I think I sat down with over 60 different people in the summer of 2017 over lunch, coffee, donuts, or whatever, just to get an idea of where we were as a school. And I knew that I asked one central question: what's a Don? And what I realized walking through the campus, watching people's interactions, people were not talking to each other. Staff would ignore each other. Students would ignore each other. And I don't think it was on purpose. There was just no sense of connection, right? And we needed something to resurrect, or I want to say resurrect, this idea of being a Don. So no one could articulate to me clearly what a Don was with any sense of pride. So the idea of listening is really about being able to listen to each other, being connected to each other. But we talk about one of the important aspects of the Don way is understanding that the Don, and I'm really happy about how we've used the Don intentionally. In Spanish, the noun Don is a surname, right? So all of us on campus have the surname Don or Doña. So I'm Don Watson. Everyone calls me Don Watson. And Jose would be Don Jose. And Julia would be Doña Julia. And Jerome would be Don Jerome. So that's just the title that we have for every student and staff member on campus to unify us through identity, right? We're all Dons. So that identity in and of itself really creates this even playing field, right, of equality. If you think about restorative approaches really, when you sit in a circle, you sit down with folks on their level. You're not standing over them, right? You're sitting down, you're all on the same page. I'm connecting this to listen in just a second for you. But really, it's about understanding that we're all one. The second part of the Don is, in Spanish, the noun Don is defined as a gift from God should you choose to receive it. And that's important because we're really, at our school, we're focused on building this idea of assets in our folks, all of our students and our staff. A lot of our staff and our students, when we think about, it's hard to think about what we're good at. It's hard to think about what really our strengths are, right? But it's easy, we can easily talk about what's not good or our deficits. So I really want to shift from a deficit mindset on campus to an asset-based mindset. So the idea of listening is really the idea of taking time intentionally to listen to yourself and figure out what your Dons are, what Dons you bring to school every single day. And I really believe that if every single one of our staff members and students can identify those 1 to 2 or 3 to 5 dons or I want to say virtues or values or character strengths that they're proud of, the more you believe in that and the more you hear that from other people and people affirm that, you start to replicate those behaviors in a more of a positive way. Hence, moving toward a more strength-based or asset-building community. So that's really about listening to yourself and then listening to each other, looking and listening for those opportunities to affirm each other.
I love that. I mean, a couple things. One, you're creating a family. You all have that dawn, right? You and I are USC Trojans, and what's it like to be a Trojan, right? And I don't say that in my podcast much, but I do enjoy that. You and I, maybe coming from different backgrounds, have that together, right? We are actually going to help each other for some stupid reason. And I love SC, but I'm always looking at my parents going, I don't deserve this. I could barely afford to go there, scraping it together with junior college, and they shouldn't have accepted me. I'm an idiot, but I got this chance to be a part of that family. You're creating that for free with that Dawn word, which I love. And then second thing I love that you're doing is I'm going to dumb this down. You kind of had donut day. It sounds like you had student groups and you listened to them. Am I wrong there?
Yeah, so I want to say, yeah, I did sit down in focus groups with kids and listen to them. Our student leaders, kids who are already on the school site council or ASB, and students who are not. I've actually built in what we call a principals advisory committee or a PAC. So I've recruited a group of 12 to 15 kids that are straight A kids to straight F kids, right? Kids who never got a referral to kids who have been suspended maybe once or twice the past 2 to 3 years. And I'm really proud to say that we haven't suspended many kids in the past 2 years either. That has a lot to do with our restorative approaches. But again, the idea is that kids need a voice, right? Actually, they have a voice. We need to make sure that we're honoring their voice. And so me being the principal, it's my job to sit down with our kids and honor that voice and give them the space and the opportunity for me to listen to them. And again, I need to model listening for my students and for my staff. I mean, we've also done stuff like having fish bowls in front of my staff with students, having student leaders sit down in an inner circle, having staff sit on the outside and listen to students dialogue back and forth about different challenges or conflicts or issues that they're having with staff, right? To have staff really reflect on how our students are perceiving their approaches in the classroom or in the hallways. So it's really about listening to our kids.
Okay, so we started with step one for everybody listening right now. Step one was love and remind kids that the staff loves them and cares for them. Number two is listen to the students. And you're going to notice that Principal Watson has this as a part of this isn't a class that students take. This is you enter this campus and it's going to be a fabric that you're going to see. So it was love, it was listen. Now talk to us about lead. What does it mean to lead? And what do you tell your staff and your students about leading?
Well, most importantly, Dominguez High School, as you may not know, maybe the audience doesn't know, Dominguez High School when I walked in was on what we call accreditation probation status. So the school was really at risk of either losing its accreditation or being overtaken by the state. Many different situations or scenarios can come from that. So in just 8 months after I started in July 2017, we had our 1 year visit. So I had 8 months to turn things around, and they were thoroughly impressed with the direction and the vision and the community's response to the leadership in just 8 months. And so we were granted accreditation through 2023. And you never hear of a school coming off of probationary status moving to a full accreditation, being reinstated through 2023, as long as that will be, right? And 5 years later. So I'm proud of that leadership, and that leadership didn't happen alone, right? That leadership happens with entire school community. I talked to you earlier, Josh, about really my vision is that when you transform any organization, it can never happen from the top down or from the outside inside. It has to happen from the inside out. So it's really about empowering our students, empowering our staff to really help them own their school, own the organization that maybe previously they didn't, or they didn't feel empowered to. And so giving them the tools, giving them the skills, giving them the opportunity and the title in many different cases to really say, this is my school and this is what needs to be changed. So leadership for me, and I love the idea that you're building resumes for students. I tell kids all the time, I gave example, I think I want to say just this week, I visited yesterday. We started Summer Bridge. Monday, we started Summer Bridge and summer school at school. And so Summer Bridge is for ninth graders matriculating into Dominguez High School in the fall. I met with the ninth graders and I asked them all by raise of hand, how many of you have social media, IG, Snapchat or whatever? Great. Almost everybody raised their hand. And I said, if you invest as much time in building your Dominguez High School profile as a leader, right, that's what matters. And that's the success you need in order to get yourself ready for the next level. So let's build your Dominguez High School profile. That's your real, not your virtual profile. Let's make sure we build that. So for me, I really believe in leadership. And lastly, I want to say just really giving my staff an opportunity to lead has been highly important. I think I've gotten lots of different qualitative responses from my staff and survey, and there's staff talking to me saying, you know what, you've given us a sense of purpose. And that's what it's about, working with the instructional leadership team or school site council. Just before I make decisions, I ask my staff members what they think about some decisions I make. That's really important. Just involving them in the leadership process is key.
Yeah, I love that. You get better ideas and they feel like it's their idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love that. Even if you know you're going to go with that, getting their feedback they just love that. Even if they disagree with it, they feel like they own it.
Feel honored and respected. And that's important.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So we talked about love, listen, lead. What does it mean to learn?
Oh, learning happens every day in every possible way. That's the slogan. So, we have to learn in the classroom, but not only in the classroom. We learn in the hallways. We learn from each other. We seek to learn from others. We're not waiting for learning to be dumped into our mind, right? We have to seek opportunities to learn and to grow. And that message for me is important for students, but I think much more important for staff. I want my staff to understand that professional development doesn't just happen on our designated professional development days. I want them to seek learning in many different ways. We've allocated funding to make sure staff can go to conferences and go to and participate in observations at other school sites. Staff want to be pulled out of a classroom for a day or two to do some extra learning and collaboration together. I'm okay with that. We just have to make sure that we're focused on learning. Really, and obviously, I think one of the trendy words or phrases that we use is creating a database culture, but really a database culture is built on inquiry, right? So learning our school and learning what our issues are is really important in that process as well. So an inquiry-based model is really about helping identify problems of practice, students and staff, and moving through those problems in effective and research-based ways.
I love it. So we've talked about a lot, and you've hinted at something, a deficit-based approach versus asset-based approach. I'd like you to speak to that for a moment, please.
Yeah. So I think we talked a little bit earlier about how I want to move, and I don't want to act like that is my term alone. I mentioned to you earlier, my vision is to create a hall-friendly asset building adults. And that term is not mine alone. I actually borrow that term from an organization up north called Community Matters. And they around social emotional learning and restorative practices in schools. So I want to say, and there's a gentleman by the name of Rick. I can't remember his last name right now. It'll come to me in a second. But Rick is a gentleman who, when he said that, it stuck with me. It's never left my mind. But I actually, when he told me, I visualized that. Like, how do I train my staff to literally and intentionally walk down the hallway and look for opportunities to affirm kids, right? Not just walk down the hallway and say, hey, how are you doing, Don Joshua? But, hey, Don Joshua, great job on the basketball court yesterday. Or, I saw you in tutoring in the library after school 2 days ago. I was really proud to see you there. Keep up the good work. Looking for seeking intentional opportunities to affirm our kids in the hallways is where you really build a lot of relationships. It just doesn't happen in the classroom. And oftentimes kids need that affirmation, not just from their teachers, but other adults across campus. And that's how kids can identify who they can go to for support all the time.
It must feel great to be seen too. I'll tell you what, every student, no matter whether you went to any school, it just feels good to be seen. You were playing basketball. We as humans love to be seen and heard. And I love that. That's a really amazing approach. Okay, so hall-friendly adults, you're seeking out and affirming students, not just seeing them, but saying something nice about them. I love that. Specific asset-building adults. And then creating school-wide change was your third thing, allowing kids to own the school. Can you give us a nugget there around how you can allow a student to own their school?
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with different leadership positions you put kids in. And leadership isn't always a title, right? So when I came to school, we had an established ASB, or Associated Student Body, which I knew as a principal, I had to be a lot more involved with in order for us to get the change we needed at the school. So what I do, I'm very intentional about visiting with ASB every Wednesday, have the time allocated, sacred time in my calendar. I've missed a few here and there, I'll be honest, things come up, but the kids know that I'm connected with them and I'm going to be committed to them. So the focus is always being in the classroom. I'm sorry, I had a visitor. Always being present with them, problem solving with them, presenting data to our students. I think one of the most impactful conversations I had with ASB in year one was talking about our A through G completion rates. In California, our college going curriculum, our college acceptance curriculum in UC system, the CSU system is the A through G curriculum, which is different from regular high school graduation requirement. So kids are required to take more courses. But I wanted to make sure by subgroup of students, our student body leaders knew which subgroups of students were underperforming and how we needed to focus on providing more resources to support them. So kids gave me ideas around tutoring, right? Kids gave me ideas around, this past semester, we had a Black and African American AP family night. Intentionally, we invited our Black families, all right, and I've used Black and African American as two different terms because we identify our kids on campus aren't all African American. Some just identify as Black. We had these families and students come in, about 60 families came in, and we talked about the underrepresentation of Black and African American students in our AP classes. And through that process, we were discussing, the different policies and practices that we needed to expose and change in order to close that achievement and opportunity gap for students. So again, a lot of these ideas come from kids when you're engaging them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about me. The other idea is too, I don't know if you've ever heard of an organization called Link Crew or the Boomerang Project.
Mm-hmm.
At the high school level, it's one of the most beneficial and inspiring professional development sessions I've been to. The Boomerang Project, there's a program called Link Crew that in which you would recruit about 100, depending on your freshman class, you recruit about 100 to 120 juniors and seniors to welcome and mentor freshmen coming in. So this group of seniors and juniors, 120, are my ninth grade mentors. And so they go through trainings all throughout the year. They have a big event this summer. They're actually going to have 3 days of training. And then they're leading orientation day for all the freshmen. They're welcoming freshmen on campus. They're taking them on tours around the campus. They're going to have their own, like you and I, like you're a junior, I'm a senior. We'd have a group of 10 freshmen that we're going to mentor and coach all year. And so that starts on that orientation day in the classroom. So that's another organization we brought to the school in order to empower more leaders and look for more opportunities for.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you know why I love that is you're going to reduce the amount, perhaps, and call me crazy, but reduce the amount of bullying a little bit because you've got somebody older that's looking out for you. And if they see something that's wrong, they're going to say something about it.
Absolutely. And freshmen need go-to people. They're learning the campus and they don't know all the adults yet. So if they have that advocate, right, yourself or me, there for them to help guide them to the right people to support them in that. And there are a lot of kids in high school, a lot of pressure to not be snitches, right? What's the term? Snitches get stitches, right? A lot of kids tend to believe that. But I've publicly told kids in our meetings, in assemblies and pep rallies, snitches don't get stitches. Snitches help the school become better, right? So we have to make sure kids know that they have people to go to and they confide in folks. So again, Josh, it's just about creating leadership opportunities, whether they're formal or informal leadership opportunities, whether you're convening a group of kids to give you ideas. We have a new innovation or STEAM lab that we're developing. I've pumped a bunch of money into developing a new STEAM lab this coming fall on campus. So I convene a group of about 20 kids who, they call themselves a Geek Squad. So they want to come in and give me ideas about what this space needs to look like, what technology I need to order to make it a real innovative space for our kids. So really, it's honoring their minds.
Yeah, getting input from everybody. I love it.
Yes.
And they're going to treat the space better because they're going to be the ones that use it.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And I think everybody that's listening to this right now, if you're a principal, first of all, if you're a principal or superintendent and you have a story like this, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Number two, if you found any of this helpful, any of you administrators or parents or PTSA, PTA, please share this with another administrator. You know, Principal Watson here has got a lot of information. Yes, he's a USC Trojan, an outstandingly brilliant man, but at the same time, he's just working hard and he's learning every day what it takes to bring all of these awesome little human beings, these little young adults, if you will, as I treat them, bringing them together to make sure they get along and they are launching into a career and a college and an internship and everything else. We all really want the same thing. We just have different ways of getting there. And I love your approach. I really think this is good for the kids. Okay, let's do this. We're going to round it out. You've got some parent nuggets. And then you've got some staff and admin nuggets. Can you give us the parent nuggets? What are your 3 tips that you have for parents?
So for parents, I did mention in the podcast earlier that I really believe that parent in engagement is vital to the school success. And so that's also a piece that we've been working very closely with, is making sure our parents are engaged and also empowered to lead our school as well. But I think if we're talking about safety and some of the issues our kids are facing today, it's really important for parents to study the school-wide social emotional learning strategy, and I use that term very intentionally with you all parents, because it's important that we approach administrators and teachers with the language that they're studying and utilizing as well. What is a social emotional learning strategy for the school? If there isn't a lot of evidence of the social emotional learning strategy, look for ways to participate so you can create that strategy, so that and you can be part of that process. A lot of schools have PBIS, positive behavior intervention support system. A lot of schools are using restorative practices, but again, those approaches cannot be successful or will not be successful unless they're utilized universally across all classrooms, across all spaces. So it can't just be happening in one classroom alone. And just look for evidence of these social emotional practices and ask staff to look for ways to replicate them. Much the same for admin and staff. Josh, I hope I can just move on to admin and staff. Administrators, my colleagues out there, I'm sure a lot of you know this already and already living this way, and I really appreciate you for doing that. But I really would encourage you, if you're not already, to model social emotional strategies or learning strategies with your staff and with your students. Being the principal, being assistant principal on campus, or being a superintendent, folks are looking to you to make mistakes. We know that. People are looking to you to not do the right thing. So we always have to do the right thing, and we need to model the behaviors that we expect of our people. Also, again, I mentioned strategy. What is your social emotional learning strategy for your school? You know, in California, we have to, in the high school level, we have to develop something called the SIPSA, the Single Plan for Student Achievement. That SEL, or social emotional learning strategies, built into our plan. And then I mentioned at the beginning, what does your mission statement say? And how does your mission statement represent your social emotional learning approach? And it doesn't need to be as explicit as saying, we at Dominguez High School are a social emotional learning school. Look for language and verbs that really articulate clearly your values around social emotional learning and how it needs to happen all across your community.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I really like also making sure they're written into the mission statement. I'm going to take that one step further. We as a company, because we reach 1.5 million to 2 million people a year with our safety message and our Shine Online message, we also have our staff learn our mission statement so they can recite it, so that they know it, right? And I think that's so important. Principal Watson, I want to thank you today for coming on. I'm going to give you last word before I dive into giving some parent tips as well. What would you tell the people right now that are thinking, well, what's one tip I can do when I go back in the fall to protect my middle schoolers and high schoolers to make a difference at school?
I think as a leader at the school, the most important thing you can do is sit down with your people and ask them what you can do to provide a safer environment. And ask them if they feel safe. And in my mind, divided 3 ways. What does the school look like intellectually? What does it look like? What does emotional safety look like? And what does the physical safety look like? And asking questions that really get to those answers. and then asking the same folks that you're engaging to help you develop strategies around making the school more safe. I think that'll lead you in the directions that you need to be led in order to get the results that you want around safety and social emotional learning on campus.
I love it. That's a great tip. For everybody that's listening right now, we also have 4 tranches that we believe in, 4 steps in this digital age where we often will find ourselves telling kids what not to do. And oftentimes you may consider giving your kids a device because you want to keep update or tabs on what they're doing, or maybe they are just nagging you like crazy because they make you feel like you're the worst parent in the world because they are the only one on this side of the earth that doesn't have a device. And we understand that pressure, but we also want to give you 4 tranches that you can consider at home on your own. Make sure your children are safe. Learn what the good and bad apps are, how to protect your family. Our program does this. We even have free resources and free guides at smartsocial.com so you know the top 100 apps that are most popular. But you've got to be on the apps that your kids are at. You have to go to the parks your kids are at. If your kids are there, you should be there. If they're under 18, consider popping in and out and knowing where your children are at and what those apps are like. Next, mental health and wellness, teaching your kids about bullying, screen time addiction, why they need to not compare themselves to others, which leads to anxiety, depression, and other things. And that's what we want to make sure that your kids have a healthy version of when this should be put down. We have a whole series of slides in our program, or all of my speeches that talk about the good side of social and the bad side. And then next, please consider talking to your kids about their future. Even if they're in elementary school, what do you want to do with your career? Sit down, and if it's on the refrigerator with a free piece of paper, just start developing what are the 3 activities you're most proud of. Start working with your student to turn their activities, even on a piece of paper on the refrigerator. What are you going to be known for if we have to send something into a college tomorrow? And they don't have to know the college they're going to go to, but they should have an idea of a career or a major. And even if they don't know that, let's take their passion, their projects, and their purpose, start developing it into a piece of paper. Our program does that on a Google site and really does some innovative things to get up here to really affirm a child, to let them know, hey, you play the piano well. We should show that off, because a college is going to look at the amount of time you've spent doing that and go, wow, that's impressive. And then last, someday you're going to be able to take all those great things and get your kid moving in that direction and turn into a college-ready resume. And it's really a high school resume that makes them college-ready. Because I got to tell you, it's not a one and done. It's not, oh, I got into college, things are done. No, it turns into internships. There'll be opportunities before college. There's going to be clubs. There's all kinds of things happen that you never thought possible when you start developing that portfolio. I could go on, but we here at smartsocial.com want you to really think about that in elementary school and middle school. Developing that portfolio. 7th and 8th grade is when districts all over the country invite me to fly there, and we do big sessions where every kid leaves with a private portfolio, and they at least have a framework, and they're going, whoa, I never even thought this could be a career. And that's what we really want you guys to consider. You can learn more by clicking the links below, or at least just by going to smartsocial.com. Principal, I want to thank you for your time here today. You are awesome. And you know what? I'm going to make myself available. If I may come to Compton someday, which is only a 30-minute drive, 15-minute drive, I would love to build websites with your students and help them to shine online.
Thank you, Josh. It'll be an honor.
Think about that. That is my offer. And to the rest of you, principals, keep up the good fight. Parent-teacher organizations, remember to make yourself as a resource to those principals. Stay ahead of the kids online. Don't give up. I know there's a lot of technology, and a lot of parents want to say, hey, I just am not technology savvy. You know what? With a little bit of work, just a little bit, getting on the apps, you can stay ahead of your kids. And remember that having a healthy dialogue with your kids about the digital apps that they're on is going to be the #1 way to protect your children. It's not, oh, I have this safety app or this safety app. We can't outsource the protection of our children. We have to and must be where our kids are at and have a healthy dialogue. And remember this one last thing. It really takes a village. As Principal Watson would say, it takes a village to really raise that child. So know that you won't be the cool person for your children every day. Have an aunt, an uncle, have your principal, get trusted adults that your kids can go to. So if they have a question and they feel like you're the uncool mom, they can go to that person. Please consider it. Stay tough. And remember, the internet's an amazing thing. There's so many cool things that we can do with it. Principal Watson, thank you so much for your time here today. I really appreciate it. All the rest of you, we'll see you soon on the next episode. As always, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching what you do online. We'll see you guys soon. Have a great day.